Matthew Arnold begins his essay on culture and anarchy by defining the nature of curiosity. He begins with a quote from Mr. Frederick Harrison, which states his view on culture and relation to politics. Harrison states, culture is a desirable quality in a critic of new books and sits well on possessors of ballast letters. But as applied to politics, it means simply a churn for small fault-finding, love of selfish ease, and indecision in action. The man of culture is in politics one of the poorest mortals alive. Throughout his essay, Arnold works to discredit his view and to give his readers a true and special meaning of culture. English society was dramatically changed by the Industrial Revolution, which was a period characterized by profound changes and improvements in agriculture, manufacturing, mining, and transportation. It created a huge economic boom and made industry God. Arnold argues that men need to stop viewing material and external gains as sources of esteem and states that culture promotes the exact opposite of that. Culture concentrates on inward perfection and the growth of the mind and spirit. Coal, machinery, and manufacturing have become directly correlated to freedom and perfection that the English have come to see as ends in themselves. Arnold reinforces that material wealth cannot be an end in themselves and that society needs to focus on the improvement of mind and spirit.
In his essay, Arnold argues against worshiping machinery and systems themselves as opposed to the potential truth that may be revealed through those systems and the good that can come from them. One of his main defenses of culture includes the idea that culture, as a mode, will try to avoid worshiping machinery, although it considers itself a mere mechanism, and yet won't try and dispel of an idea for the sake of it. What Arnold considers machinery includes wealth, religion, and other systems which in some way or another eventually come into conflict with his idea of true human perfection and how that can be achieved. Any system that ignores too heavily the goal of perfection that lies beyond the physical has problems within it that should be analyzed and critiqued for the sake of all humanity. Arnold believes that the oneness of humanity and our inherent spiritual mutual interest is at the core of perfection and how it should manifest itself on earth. The conflict between rugged individualism and harmonious perfection within a society is at the heart of tension throughout all of America's history. In a sense, this country was founded on the idea that the rights of the individual are the most important of all. Not to say that this ideology was actually enacted consistently. However, it is an idea that is a part of the American fabric in terms of how Americans view themselves and how we revere the idea of our foundation. So, the debate is always continuing about when the concern of the nation's people as a cohesive unit trumps individualism when it comes to policy making, and whether the individual always has a right to express themselves, even if they are denying someone else a desired right or necessity.
The main focus of the debates lies solely on the improvement of the economy. Each question concerns the creation of jobs, tax reductions, and the creation of new industries. This could be rooted in the United States political and cultural ideology that directly relates economic success to individual worth. Our capitalist society creates an ideology that concentrates exclusively on the expansion of business and capital and leaves no room for this perfection of the mind and spirit that Arnold talks about. In modern America, the particular pursuit of our society is the accumulation of wealth and the comfort of material items via consumerism.
The debate about healthcare within our country currently is a perfect example of the type of conflict Arnold was commenting on. The Affordable Health Care Act, passed by President Obama, takes away some rights of the individual in the form of a mandate which functions like a tax, in order to care for the people as a whole. The reasoning is there is no excuse to continue letting tens of millions of Americans live without health insurance, because it is often a matter of life and death. For example, it is estimated 26,000 Americans die a year simply because they do not have health insurance. Although Obama and other defenders of the act are arguing for something tangible and better health and access for the 30 million Americans that can now be covered, they are essentially representing the side of the debate which acknowledges that we should be concerned for the well-being of all people for the sake of a more perfected whole. This cannot be achieved by succumbing to the whims of capitalism, which inherently does not concern itself with achieving this goal, although it is machinery which could be used to help achieve perfection.
I just don't know how the president could have come into office facing 23 million people out of work, rising unemployment, an economic crisis at the kitchen table, and spent his energy and passion for 2 years fighting for Obamacare instead of fighting for jobs for the American people. It has killed jobs.
It wasn't just that this was the biggest driver of our federal deficit, our overall health care costs, but it was families who were worried about going bankrupt if they got sick. Millions of families all across the country. If they had a pre-existing condition, they might not be able to get coverage at all. If they did have coverage, insurance companies might impose an arbitrary limit.
Because industries run for profit, they will always work in opposition in some way or another to the bodily health of citizens. For instance, in a world where health is seen as vitally important as the accumulation of wealth, half the products we sell and buy, i.e. McDonald's, processed food, and cigarettes, may not even be legal because they would be labeled as poisons to the masses. Arnold notes that health is something that should be paid far greater attention to than the machinery he describes because it is essential for achieving his idea of what perfection encompasses. However, our physical health as a nation will always clash with our accepted and internalized idea of the individual as long as we continue to worship our current machinery.
In his essay, Arnold states, "Our coal, thousands of people were saying, is the real basis of our national greatness. If our coal runs short, there is an end of the greatness of England. But what is greatness? Culture makes us ask. Greatness is a spiritual condition worthy to excite love, interest, and admiration, and the outward proof of possessing greatness is that we excite love, interest, and admiration." In the United States, national greatness is defined by economic success. Americans pride themselves for being the financial capital of the world. Individual interests are rooted in economic interests. Arnold works to promote culture as the first and necessary source needed to achieve perfection. He believes that individual perfection and the growth of the mind and spirit are more important than material wealth. He attacks England for its sole investment in industry and the accumulation of wealth, yet provides no solutions or alternatives. This leads us to ask one final question. How is a country or society supposed to invest in an individual's growth of mind and spirit? How can it continue economic success without making it the top priority?